Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Govardhana Radha Govardhana Radhe. Jaya Radha Govardhana Radha Govardhana Shri Radhe. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gora Nitai, Gora Nitai, Jaya Gora Nitai, Jaya Gora Nitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi Haribo, Jaya Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa Padaprajak Acharya Ashatar Sata Sri Srimad, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Divine Grace, AC Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Prabhishna Om Vishnu Pad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridasa Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakahosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Gir Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Bhajamubhidam Madam Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Lal Chal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Your most beautiful Lordship Shri Shri Radha Govardhan Dari Ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaunitai Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead Ki Jai. ISKCON New Govardhan Yatra Ki Jai. Bariha Admadanga Chancellor Book Distribution Ki Jai. International Food for Life Chancellor Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Shri Ekadashi Vrata Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Glory Srila Prabhupada. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for your hospitality. Forgive me my presumptuousness for giving class on a day when I understand Prabhupada would normally give class. I would not have accepted it if I had known that. I was fooled by Vasu Shrestha Prabhu. I scheduled the classes in New Dwarka, Los Angeles ISKCON, and I try never to schedule anybody on Prabhupada's scheduled day, which is Sunday. Prabhupada gives class every Sunday. And the temple president, Subhas Das, knows that. So whenever he wants to ask me, he comes in folded hands and says, please, Prabhu, so-and-so Swami is coming only for one day. Can you schedule him to give class on Sunday? Yeah, all right. Hare Krishna. And then I schedule Prabhupada to give class the next day. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Sarsatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadhirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is a translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatittama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of God, it is worship with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing our reading from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 12, entitled Creation of the Kumaras and Others. Today's text is 42. Savitrang Prajapatyang cha Brahmang chatta brihattata Partha Sanchaya Shalina Shiloncha Itivai Grihe Savitrang Prajapatyang cha Brahmang Chatta Prahattata Partha Sanchaya Shalina Shiloncha Itivai Grihe Savitrang Prajapatyang cha Brahmang chatta brihattata Varta sanchaya shalina Shiloncha itivai grihe. Please chant. Vaishnavis. Or chant. Nowadays, we're reduced to chanting to just a few ladies, a few men. But I had the good fortune. I joined in New York in '73, and when I first went to the temple, I think like the third time, I saw devotees were like excitedly running around, painting, banging, building a new vyasa. I said, "What's happening?" They said, "Prabhupada is coming. Prabhupada is coming." So I had the good fortune of hearing Prabhupada speak almost immediately, and Then we were transferred. I got involved with the ISKCON press at the time. Then we were transferred to LA in 75 spring. We became BBT. And Prabhupada sat down in New York for quite a long time. We had that famous 17 volumes in 2 months marathon. So I heard Prabhupada give class day after day after day after day. And you can hear on the original recordings, the devotees would chant, chant, chant. And then Prabhupada said, okay, ladies. And then the ladies would chant, chant, chant. Nowadays, because we've compacted our schedule, we don't have the time freedom. But repetition is the mother of learning, Prabhupada said many times. So the more you chant each verse every day, something will stick, something sticks in there. Okay, synonyms. Savitram, the thread ceremony of the twice born. Prajapatyam, to execute the vow for 1 year. Cha, and Brahmam, acceptance of the Vedas. Cha, and Atta, also. Brihat, complete abstinence from sex life. Tata, then. Varta, vocation in terms of Vedic sanction. Sanchaya, professional duty. Shalina, livelihood without asking anyone for cooperation. Shila Unshaha, picking up rejected grains. Iti, thus. Vai, even though. Grihe, in household life. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. Then the thread ceremony for the twice born was inaugurated, as were the rules to be followed for at least 1 year after acceptance of the Vedas. Rules for observing complete abstinence from sex life, vocations in terms of Vedic injunctions, various professional duties in household life, and the method of maintaining a livelihood without anyone's cooperation by picking up rejected grains. Please repeat. Then the thread ceremony for the twice born was inaugurated, as were the rules to be followed for at least 1 year after acceptance of the Vedas. Rules for observing complete abstinence from sex life. Vocations in terms of Vedic injunctions. Various professional duties in household life. And the method of maintaining a livelihood without anyone's cooperation by picking up rejected grains. Who is the sound person here? It needs to be adjusted. You hear this? That shouldn't be there. If you, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying now, even when it was on the stand, I'm still going to bring it close to my mouth. So you need to bring down the reverb if there's reverb, or just bring the volume down slightly, and then you won't get that sound. Yeah, that's better. Hare Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada's purport. During student life, the brahmacharis were given full instructions about the importance of the human form of life. Thus, the basic education was designed to encourage the student in becoming free from family encumbrances. Only students unable to accept such a vow in life were allowed to go home and marry a suitable wife. Otherwise, the student would remain a permanent brahmachari, observing complete abstinence from sex life for his whole life. It all depended on the quality of the student's training. We had the opportunity to meet an avowed brahmachari in the personality of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaj. Such a great soul is called a Naishtika brahmachari. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschachideshtarine Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmulitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtang Stapitang Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandayahang Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishavangsha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragana Tanvatam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vatangsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate. Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhya Shah Kripa Sindhuva Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the reason I like to hold a microphone, Mataji, is because then wherever I turn my head, the microphone goes with me. Many speakers, and I know, like I said, I schedule classes, they leave it on the stand, and then they turn around, and then the voice picks up and drops out, and it's, especially nowadays when everything goes out on the internet, you want to keep the sound steady. You don't want to have it falling out, and so that's why I hold it. So this theme is obviously prevalent in the Vedic literatures as a whole, and in Srimad Bhagavatam for sure, about the different orders of life and their responsibility. Srila Prabhupada said human life means responsible life, and even above responsible life is dedicated life. And Prabhupada said once, dedicated life means noble life. So people nowadays are very much into genealogy because they're hoping to find that they're related to king somebody or queen somebody. They don't want to know that they're related to Jack the Ripper, you know. So everybody wants to be noble or feel noble. So if you want to be noble, dedicate your life to Krishna consciousness. Dedicated life is noble life. And the beginning of such dedication is the brahmachari brahmacharini training. But it has to start early. Otherwise, it's very difficult to attain the goal. Myself, I joined in 73 at the age of 21. And most of my peers, including the person I got a book from, His Holiness Devamrita Swami, he was not initiated at the time. He was just a bhakta distributing books. So, if you start at age 21, I know in my own case, I can't say for my God brothers and gods, I was already spoiled rotten since puberty, just completely spoiled in every way you can imagine. But I understood my parents clearly. If I just maintained good grades in school, which I did, they didn't interfere in my life. But at that age, at age 21, when you're already spoiled rotten, it's hard to become a brahmachari. Brahmachari life starts at 5. Komaram acharya pragyo dharmam bhagavatam iha. Durlabam manasam janma. Tadapyajuvam artadam. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking. At age 5 himself, he knew. Komaram, at this age, 5, this is when the training in Bhagavad Dharma should start. And that begins in relation to this topic with seeing every woman as mother, which a 5-year-old boy has no problem doing, because there's no question of love interest. So at that point, every woman is mother, and that is deeply embedded in the consciousness. So by the time they get to puberty and then manhood, it's already built in. They don't have to be forced to see women as mother. It's already there. And Prabhupada gave the example from his own life that he took his youngest son to the cinema, and every time a woman would go on the screen, he'd say, here's another mother, here's another mother, here's so built in. So we can't be surprised in our society or in the society at large when young men have difficulty maintaining vows of abstinence, because they make those vows when they're already completely rotten. It's very difficult when your consciousness is already steeped in chasing women or running after men. If you're a woman, it's very difficult to get out of that consciousness. It takes many years to purify the consciousness. So for our ISKCON brahmacharis, I always put them on the spot in this regard. If you want to be a brahmachari, the definition of brahmacharya is given in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. There's a double verse, 13 and 14, in which Prabhupada quotes Yajnavalkya, a verse from Yajnavalkya that defines brahmacharya life. Brahmacharis must know this verse. Karmana manasa vacha sarvabhastasu sarvada sarvatra maitana tyaga brahmachari prachakshase. So anybody who's wearing saffron or living in the brahmacharini ashram, this is the goal. Karmana means by work, your activities. Manasa, in your thinking process. Vacha, by your speech. Sarvabhastasu sarvada sarvatra. In all places, at all times, under all circumstances, no connection to sex life. Maitana tyaga. brahmacharya pratyakshase. If you can do that, then you're called a brahmachari. But like I said, it's very difficult if you start at age 21, 25, and you're already completely steeped in, sinful life. It's very difficult. However, the effort has to be made because the social order begins at brahmachari life, brahmacharini life. In our case, Prabhupada gave that concession. Sometimes our ISKCON brahmacharis they think that they're higher than the grihasthas and at least on the same level as, and even that I'm not so sure. They think like that. But no, brahmachari life means the basement, the start, the foundation. So if we don't make an effort to produce good brahmacharis, then we can never have good grihasthas. In the beginning, of course, Prabhupada was starting from scratch. So somebody would have trouble maintaining brahmachari. All right, get him married. If he can't maintain brahmachari vows, he's going to have a hard time maintaining grihastha vows. It's obvious. But that's what happened. And then later on, when such not so good grihasthas, some or other became sannyasis, then we can't be surprised when. So in the beginning, there was no other choice. Starting from scratch. But now, 50 years down the road, the effort has to be there to produce pakka brahmacharis. Maybe not Naistika brahmachari like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but at least pakka brahmacharis who can maintain their vows. In New Dwarka, I know Savas, when somebody wants to join the brahmachari ashram, they have to make a promise to maintain brahmachari life for minimum 2 years. And then after that, if you get through that level, now you have to make another vow. You're going to go for 5 years, if you're going to go for 10 years. Like that. You have to make a promise. But our culture, Western culture especially, even India nowadays, it's vows. Okay, so I broke the vow, so what? Nobody takes it very seriously. Nobody takes it very seriously. And then we're surprised when we have problems at every step of the way. So dedicated life means taking vows and sticking to them. And again, the foundation is brahmachari life, brahmacharini life. So it's very encouraging. I hear that you have a training program where they start out being properly indoctrinated, and then they have to make a vow to go to the brahmacharya, brahmacharini ashram. This is the way it should be. I'm not sure if you're starting at age 5. You do have a nice school here. Yesterday, my longtime friend is Jagani Vasprabhu, disciple of Jayapataka Maharaj. He's lived in the LA community. He lived there for 18 years. He was in charge of the restaurant, and he was the head cook. And he has 4 daughters, 3 of whom live in this community. Bhakti, Radha, and Lakshmi. So Bhakti's traveling, so Radha and Lakshmi, I knew them since they were babies. They took me around and gave me a tour of the school. They're both teachers there. And it's very encouraging, very impressive to see the structure you have here. And it's expanding, they're building more like that. But even more than the physical infrastructure is the curriculum. What are they being taught? So Prabhupada said the children have to be taught from the very beginning how to be clean. Prabhupada said cleanliness is next to godliness. He said the mouth is the dirtiest part. So every time you touch your mouth, you should wash your hands. They have to be taught this from beginning years. And he said even if there is no soap, water is by nature antiseptic. And it actually cleared up something that was in my mind for many years. Many years ago, one of my good friends in the membership, LA membership community, very well-to-do family. They make clothing in India and China, and then they sell to big stores in America, Nordstrom's, Macy's, like that. But I'm very good friends with the patriarch of the family. So when his mother passed away, he invited me to come to India for the final rites. So it was a huge entourage going from Delhi up to Hardwar, where the ceremony was done. So while we're in Hardwar, sitting at the fire pit, just beginning the ceremony, I turn around and I see a mother walking down the street with her infant child, and then the child stops and takes care of nature, and with her own hands she cleans them with just the water from a pipe there, and then they move on and about their business. I'm thinking, man, this is not so clean. Where's the soap? And then when I heard Prabhupada say this, he said, water is by nature antiseptic. Nice if you have soap and disinfectants and all this stuff, but water is by nature antiseptic, Prabhupada said. So the children have to be taught, first of all, to be clean, and then how to be obedient. The Prophet said in the beginning, the mothers especially, you can't discipline a 2-year-old very heavily. They have to kind of do their thing. But when they get to 5, Komaram, at that level, they have to accept discipline. And that's what Gurukula is meant for. Brahmachari Gurukula Vasanda Gurur Hitam. The Brahmachari, now we have Brahmacharinis are sent to this Gurukula to be trained in discipline. Prabhupada said there's no question of disciple if there's no discipline. So being a disciple, those who are not yet initiated, take it seriously. You're vowing to allow yourself to be disciplined by this spiritual guide, your spiritual master. That's what it means. If you don't want to accept discipline, then don't become somebody's disciple. Then it becomes just a disturbance. Disturbance not only to your own spiritual master, but to the society at large. Because undisciplined so-called devotees just make a havoc in a spiritual society. Better to just be honest and just go out and be out in the world. That's where undisciplined life is encouraged. It's not just accepted, it's encouraged. Do your own thing, man. Why you have to? My father told me that when I joined. I just finished my 3rd year of civil engineering curriculum. Walking down the street, I saw this brahmachari at a table. It was Dave Amerton. Actually, I thought he had already been initiated. All these years I was thinking like that. But he invited me to go to the Recharge Festival in Otaki. So we were talking, and he said, no, I wasn't even initiated yet. I was still a bhakta when you bought that book for me. So, undisciplined life out there. But when you come to Krishna consciousness, you have to accept discipline. Sometimes even those of us who've been on the path for a long time forget that it's a path of surrender. It's not a path of doing your own thing. It's a path of surrender. One comes to the spiritual master to be taught first and foremost how to think properly. How to think properly. Everybody out there is thinking improperly. They're in illusion, so they don't see things clearly. And if you can't see things clearly, you can't think about them clearly. So the duty of the spiritual master is to teach the disciples how to think properly. Thinking leads to feeling, leads to willing, leads to action. So if one is taught how to think properly, one will develop proper feelings, and then one will will oneself to act properly. So this is the beginning of discipline, is yama niyama. What to do, what not to do. And again, if this hasn't been drilled into us, then we actually remain anti-authority. We don't want anybody to tell us what to do. And quite often that is the impetus for leaving the brahmacharya ashram, because brahmacharis still have to exhibit some degree of discipline, but they chafe against it if they're not really in the right mood. So they get married to get away from the discipline of the guru and the temple authority, and then they accept a new GBC at home. Isn't it? It becomes a struggle. I don't want to be told what to do, but if I want peaceful life at home, then I have to accept. Do this, don't do that. So it begins with, why are we on this path? If we take to the path of bhakti, or any other spiritual path, for the right reason, then things fall into place nicely. But if I forget, what is the goal of this bhakti? And Prabhupada kept reminding us, going back to home, back to Godhead. You can't initially, mama janmani, janmanishwara, you want to stay in the material world forever and preach. No, that comes after one is already liberated, because then you're not affected by anything on the material platform. But if we're still on the material platform, then we have to have that as our goal. Going back to home, back to Godhead, ki jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead, ki jai. Do we want to get out of this crazy place or not? Such a crazy, terrible place. In a normal year, I would usually go to Europe like 3 times, go to India. Jayapataka Maharaj asked me to start going to South America, so I've been to Peru a couple of times. But one of my trips to Europe would be to the Bhakti Sangama festival in Ukraine. I started going in 2015, and I would go every year after that. And then COVID hit, and then the invasion came. So I took this invasion very, very personally because I know devotees in all of those countries. I've been to all of the countries around there. Russia, Belarus, Poland, Ukraine, all of these countries in that area. And such nice devotees, wonderful devotees in that area. And then this invasion comes along. So I bring this up. It's unfortunately, it's still in the news because it's a prime example of how material acquisitions will never satisfy us. The chief protagonist, the chief attacker, is supposedly the most wealthy person on this planet. They estimate a minimum of about 40 billion, that's billion with a B, not M, 40 billion up to as much as $200 billion this person is worth. And still has to attack his neighbor. You see? So material acquisitions will never satisfy us. We should know that. The spirit soul can never be happy with any position or any amount of acquisition in the material world. It's not possible. So we have to just forget about that. I'm not chasing after the phantasmagoria of getting this and getting that, getting one car, getting another car, getting this house, getting a bigger house. Or even if you're on that path, don't forget Krishna. I heard Gopal Krishna Maharaj, he's such a wonderful preacher once when I was living in the Potomac Temple, because I don't know if you know the history of that temple. That entire area, we say the Washington, D.C., but it's not. It's about 45 minutes away from D.C. And that entire area was pristine farm country. And then gradually, they started selling parcels to have houses built. And lo and behold, most of those million-dollar mansions were owned by Indians. So Gopal Krishna Maharaj said, look, I know you guys when you first came to America. You were living 5 together in a 2-bedroom apartment. And then you started making more money. You bought a small house and you bought a bigger house. Now you're living in a $1 million mansion. Why do you think Christians should stay in just a little shack? Every time you buy a house, at least think we should improve Christian situation. You see? We're Christian servants. So we want to see our master living in luxury, not myself living in. And some or other Christians giving you the opportunity to live in luxury, then hey, upgrade Christian to a more luxurious position. Krishna gives us that opportunity. It's not that he wants anything from us or needs anything. What he wants from us is our hearts. That's what he wants, and that's what we hold on to the tightest. And that's why it states in the first canto that heart, when we're chanting Hare Krishna, that heart that doesn't allow the occupant of the heart, the soul, to experience ecstasy when chanting Hare Krishna, that means that heart is steel-framed. It's a steel-framed heart. So we have to make the effort to break those steel shackles so we can start to experience the ecstasy of chanting Hare Krishna. Because the process, the means, the goal is chanting. The process is chanting Hare Krishna, and the means to get to the goal is chanting Hare Krishna, and the goal is to chant Hare Krishna. So purely, that even when Krishna in his personal form appears, just like Madhavendra Puri, he was sitting down chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. And Krishna came as his coward boy, in his coward boy form, and said, what kind of austerity are you performing? Why don't you beg some food to eat? In our village, nobody goes hungry. He didn't recognize. He was so absorbed in chanting Hare Krishna, he didn't recognize this is Krishna. So that's how much we can get ecstasy out of this chanting of Hare Krishna. And Krishna in his personal form comes that we don't recognize. Of course, that's Krishna's Yoga Maya. You see? He was just wondering, this beautiful cowherd boy, where did he come from? It took a while for him to realize he's dealing with the object of his chanting. Hare Krishna. So, this perfection on this path begins again with this basis, this foundation of brahmachari life. So those who are in the brahmachari ashram, take it very seriously. Brahmachari life means 2 things, basically, Prabhupada pointed out to us. Study the scriptures and do whatever the spiritual master asks you to do. That's brahmachari life in a nutshell. No, as Prabhupada said here, no encumbrances of family life. Completely absent. You don't have to answer to anybody on that level. Just the spiritual master. Whatever the spiritual master tells you to do, you should do. Nowadays we are challenged because we think, well, I have my basic psychophysical nature, and why don't they employ me according to that? And The vision is not proper, and no, that is the challenge of surrendering. It's not that everything is going to be nice and hunky-dory, and then, no, that's not surrender. When the police go out to arrest some fugitive, he doesn't dictate to the police under what circumstances I'm going to surrender and what my jail cells would look like and the color and no. Surrender means you surrender and you do whatever the authorities tell you to do. So especially in the brahmacharya ashram, that has to be beaten into the head. Whatever the spiritual master tells you to do, that's what you do. You may think, well, a new preaching opportunity has opened up over there and I want to do that. But if the spiritual master doesn't agree, you don't do it. That's discipline. That's surrender. Once while I was traveling in Europe, I was having lunch with one of my godbrothers who's a guru. I'm not, don't want to be, but he's one of the initiating gurus in ISKCON, and he was complaining to me. He said, my disciples, they're always bothering me. Guru Maharaj, can I leave this temple and go to that temple? Can I leave that temple and go to this temple? He said, they don't realize wherever they go, their minds go with them. And that's where the problem starts. Because if your mind is not disciplined, you haven't been trained how to think properly, wherever you go, you're still going to run into problems. Because again, you're carrying that mental baggage. So the guru has to train the brahmacharis, brahmacharinis how to think properly. Once they learn how to think properly, they develop proper feelings, and they will themselves to act properly. And then you have a strong society. A society full of people who do their own thing is not going to last. Not going to last. And that's why Prabhupada told Satsarup Maharaj once, Satsarup Maharaj wrote to him and said he was preaching on a college campus. And he told him his plan of how he presents the philosophy. And Prabhupada said, very, very nice. Very, very nice that you're preaching in the universities. He said, I want this because if we go on expanding unlimitedly amongst the common people, our movement will fall apart. Our future leaders are going to come from the intelligent class. So Prabhupada demonstrated that. He knew how to preach to mass by going out on the streets, chanting Hare Krishna, attracting so many people on the street. But he also knew how to preach to class. So many prime ministers and big-time CEOs like this Srimati Moraji who bought his ticket to go to America. Prabhupada could preach to both ends, the people on the street and the classy people. So in ISKCON we have to remember that. And you have to have always the intention of preaching to mass and to class. Now, preaching to class doesn't mean kowtowing to them. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, don't flatter rich people to get money. Just preach. And if Krishna wants to inspire them to give, they will give. So we don't, preaching to class doesn't mean, Yes, to a certain degree. Dante Vidai, it is Prabodhananda Saraswati says, preaching means you approach somebody with a straw in your street and you flatter them. Hey Sadhava, you're such a great sadhu. But kick out everything that you think you know, and let me tell you about Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So yes, we have to be sensitive and culturally correct, but we don't preach to class of people just to get their money. They are suffering just like everybody else, just like this guy invading his neighbor, worth 40 billion to 200 billion, but so disturbed mentally that he has to attack. Can't live peacefully. All right, so thank you again for your kind hospitality. I'm only here for today. I take rest here tonight, and then tomorrow I'm flying out of Brisbane back to Auckland and then back to Los Angeles. So any questions, any comments? Yes, Ram Prasad Prabhu.
Thank you. So far, our attempts at establishing brahmacharis haven't, in young age, 5-year-olds, haven't been so successful, it seems. I don't know. Can you comment?
Yes, it's part of the growing pains of ISKCON. Prabhupada started from scratch with nothing, dealing with people, for the most part, who had no idea what to speak of intention of surrendering to Krishna. And out of that, he molded an international society, which is now, fortunately, thankfully, survived his departure and has expanded. And I know, I always tell devotees when I go to local communities and they're complaining about this and that, I said, you know what, go travel around ISKCON. You'll see that ISKCON is not just your local community and the little problems that you're having here. Go travel. By Prabhupada's mercy, it has expanded and keeps expanding. But in the beginning, those first few years and the first generation of devotees, there was a lot of trouble. Obviously, you're starting from scratch. Doesn't mean you should give up. Just like there was so much trouble in the beginning in deity worship. We didn't give up on deity worship. So just because there was trouble in the initial gurukulas doesn't mean that you should give up. Part of the problem was parents gave up their responsibility. The gurukul became I hate to say it, but a dumping place. I could leave my child there and not even think about it, just go do my thing and whatever. Maybe once in a while, check it. But that's not how it should be. The original idea of Gurukula in the Vedic culture is that a qualified Brahmana or Vaishnava would set up a school and without asking any remuneration would start teaching the basics of what we call reading, writing, arithmetic, plus Vedic culture in terms of Bhagavad Dharma. So this was the idea. But because it was in a local village, the local villagers would send their children and they would be in contact with them. It wouldn't be a dumping ground. And out of gratitude for having their children being trained, they would offer some remuneration to the Brahmana in the form of, fruits, vegetables, atta, whatever. And in this way, the Brahmana and his wife would maintain themselves. So was usually a couple, not sannyasis or something like that. Gurukula was just like who was Krishna's guru? Sandipani Muni. Was he married? Yeah. So that was a culture. Husband and wife would train the boys in this Vedic culture, and they would grow up properly indoctrinated like that. So we didn't have that. We didn't have that village mentality and the parents, keeping touch of everything. So things went awry. But I can say from personal experience that there were some of those first generation Gurukulis, as we call them, that turned out very nicely. It's not that it was all rotten. Some of them turned out very, very nicely, very paka. So yes, it doesn't mean that we give up on the effort just because there were some problems along the way. It should be part of our ISKCON Vedic culture. But the parents have to remain responsible. If your child is enrolled here in the new Govardhana school, then you have to check regularly that everything is going well. Keep an eye on the teachers, make sure they're up to the standard. Because in the material world, things go up and down. This is the problem of being and why we can't be happy here. It's endlessly mutable. It's always changing and not always for the better. So you always have to be vigilant. First of all, with yourself. What is my mind like? Is it going up, or is it taking a deep dive? Devotees can go way off, way off. And usually, the reason why we go way off is because two things. We're not following the path properly, as outlined. Prabhupada even said that once. He said, this path is a joyful path. If you're chanting Hare Krishna following these principles and you're not happy, something is wrong with the way you're executing it. There's nothing wrong with the path itself, and you can't keep blaming others. Oh, it's the authorities or my God brothers and God sisters. No, it's your fault. If you're not feeling the ecstasy of chanting Hare Krishna, following this path, he said, something is wrong, fix it. Don't just leave it like it is and hope that it'll get better. You have to make a proactive stance always to keep the mind together so that we can go forward. So along with an answer to your question, but the answer basically is just because things didn't work in the past doesn't mean they can't work in the future. We have to make the effort. Anything else? Maybe one more. What time do we end? I can go on talking for hours, so you have to stop me. 8:30. So we have 5 more minutes. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you very much for the class, Prabhu. It's very enlivening.
I
just wanted to make a point. You use the term, the parents use the Gurukul as a dumping ground. I
didn't say all of them,
yeah,
but some I know for sure.
I wanted to qualify that as one of those parents
yeah.
Who sent their children to the Gurukul because Prabhupada wanted us to send our children to the Gurukul. And I have to say, and all of the parents I know who sent their children to the Gurukul was because they understood that Prabhupada had said, must send your children to the Gurukul. If you know, as a responsible parent, your duty is to make your child Krishna conscious. And in those days, of course, we never sent our kids to non-devotee schools or even non-devotee kindergartens. So we're pretty brainwashed in a way to think that only Gurukul education is the best way to educate. And in principle, that's correct. Our fault was that we were very naive in whom we were entrusting our children. So, of course, in those days, we never thought there would be any such thing as child abuse or any form of abuse for children. So, you know, our eyes were really rudely awakened decades later when our children as adults revealed what had happened to them as children. But it's certainly, I'm glad you said some. I only heard parents use it as a dumping ground because it was the most austere thing that I personally have ever done, and something that caused great deal of pain to me personally. And I know many of my god sisters who felt the same way. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Yes, it was an emergency period. Prabhupada was dealing with, like I said, mostly young, materially saturated, materially contaminated personalities like myself, 21, 22. So if at age 22 you become a parent, it's just, we didn't have that sense of even material responsibility that many of our parents had. I know I came out of a family of highly educated people and very dedicated and responsible. My mother was a school teacher. She stopped after you couldn't discipline children anymore. She went into insurance. It was very successful. So very responsible. Our generation, at least my generation, I was born in 52. Most of us in the 60s, we were not into being responsible at all. We just wanted to have fun. You see? So even materially, we would have failed. I know many of my peers, including family members, highly educated, but they got so attached to intoxication. One of my cousins died in his 30s from heroin addiction. And his brother, I'll never go that way, but later on, he was so addicted to alcohol, he had diabetic. So like that, everybody has some problems. So even materially, most of us, if not, many of us, if not most of us, would have failed, because we just didn't have that sense of responsibility. That was missing. And if you become a parent, as you know, the Vedic injunction is, na mochayet yak samupeta mrityum. Don't become pita nasasyat, guru nasasyat. Don't become any of these things if you can't deliver your dependent from repeated birth and death. So that is the Vedic idea of responsibility. We didn't have that. We weren't even concerned about our own liberation, what to speak of offspring. So superficially, we were following Prabhupada, but I know again for myself, deep down, we were just not ready. And that was one of the root causes of the problems that we had. Because if our eyes had been open, we're coming out of the society where that kind of problem exists. It's rampant in material society. All around the world, not just in America where I joined, but all around the world. The biggest source of abuse of children all around the world is relatives, family members, close friends of the family. So that's the society at large. So coming out of that kind of society, if we had had our eyes open, we could have prevented a lot of this. But we weren't. We were naive and irresponsible, and that was kind of the cause of what happened, a lot of what happened. We just were not ready. I am not a parent, never had any children, don't have any children. But I observed. So just before you continue, 2 reasons why we have problems is improper implementation of bhakti. That's one very, very big reason. And I know, again, from personal experience, a lot of my god brothers is that it didn't mean they were not advanced. They advanced on the Prabhupada's tutelage, but because they became lax. One especially, I remember I used to chant japa with him in the morning and be like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, hey Prabhu, da 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 da, Hare Krishna, da 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 da, just like that. He was the #1 japa terrorist in New York. So I always advise devotees, avoid japa terrorists at all costs if you want to chant good rounds. If you want to chant good rounds, stay away from these kind of chanters. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hey, do you remember when such and such and such? Hare Krishna, Krishna. I wonder what they're going to cook for lunch today. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's not japa. That's not japa. And if you don't chant proper japa, you don't have the spiritual strength to keep going properly. And Maya will inevitably entice us, because that's her job. Okay, Mataji, you wanted to add something else? Okay. Hare Krishna. Anyway, it's 8:30. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Deva Hare Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Jaya Krishna Hare Jaya Rama Hare Jaya Krishna Hare Jaya Rama Hare Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Nitai Gaur Krishna Balaram Shri Radha Govinda Shri Radha Govardhana Jaya Sai Gaur Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radha Govinda, Shri Shri Radha Govardhana Dari, Govardhana Dari. Nitai God Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radha Govardhana Dari. Govinda Dari. Nitai God Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dari. Govardhana Dari.
Krishna Balaram Giriraj.
Jai Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jai Prabhupada. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki.